welcome back to the channel. This is episode, I want to say it's episode 13 of the CB750 Build project, Project Loki. So, today, if you joined us on the last episode, you will know we had a little bit of a little interesting find, where we found out that this engine basically is not a CB750 anymore. It's got bored over pistons and cylinders, and it's just a whole thing. So, because of that, what we're going to have to do today is we're going to disassemble basically the rest of this. That's the plan currently. And then we're going to go and try and get the valves squared away and get those valves pulled so that I can start inspecting those to see if those are still good or if those need to be replaced as well. So, as it sits right now, I'm going to turn you around real quick. I've got like the board of pain over there in the corner that's basically going to show what we got coming up. So, here's what we got. Ugh. That little guy is our various stuff. So, up here, I will zoom in on this if I can. So, ding, ding, there we go. So, for this, what we're looking at is potentially a new cam, which I'll show you why in a second. A new cam holder, again, which I'll show you why in a second. Potentially new pistons, which once I actually get that number 4 out, I'll show you why I think it might need to be replaced. It might still be good. It's the skirts are fine, I think. It's just the face that's got a little bit of a... I'll show you when I get there. So maybe some new pistons, maybe some new crank bearings, maybe some conrod bearings. I'm pretty sure that those are for sure going to need to happen because the connecting rods, I'm pretty sure I spun at least 1, possibly 2 of the bearings in there. I'm not entirely sure. I'll know once I get the case cracked in half. I'm leaning towards getting some new head bolts just because I think I'm going to want them. Since this is a 900, you can get some sturdier bolts for that. So we'll see if I actually end up getting those or not. So we got those. Like I already said, the new pistons, which I wrote down twice because it concerns me twice. And then lowercase gaskets, which I will need to do anyway. So, that said, let's get back into this little guy and figure out exactly what it is that we need to do. So, probably going to time-lapse this, but just so as everybody is tracking, I'm going to hop up here. And this is what we're working with right now. So, you can kind of see... drag these a little closer. What I'm talking about with these heads, or I'm sorry, with these pistons. So they are okay, but this little guy, don't fall off the desk please, has some impacts it look like here with a valve. Now it's not recent because you can kind of see there that there's carbon over top of it. So this might have been old, and then the other ones have similar issues where they've just got tons and tons of carbon buildup and whatnot. Now, one thing that you will notice is this. When I'm jiggling number 2, number 3 is moving with it, which means that these guys are not moving as smooth as they should. So you can see that those 2 move together, 2 and 3, but then 1 and 2, when I fiddle with 1 and 2, they're independent and they are fine. This is kind of what you would kind of expect. Not like this, yes, like this. So, first things first, let me slide this back. Actually, let's do a quick cut to where I've got this thing set up the way I want it to be. Okay, I think this will work a little bit better, just because I've got a better field of view. So, what we're about to do is, up in here, in these pistons, there is a little retaining thing that retains these rings. So I'm going to be pulling, I'm going to start, I think, with, honestly, I'll go with number 4 and then speed through the rest just so you get kind of an idea of how this works. But basically, I'm going to pull that ring, pull the little pin that goes in the middle here, and then I'm going to pull that piston out. So, let's get to it. And there you go. It's pretty straightforward. Pull that little pin guy out. He is now out. And then, let me just wiggle things out of the way here real quick. And he should I'm gonna be kind of careful with this, just for my own benefit. Ooh. Hang on, let me get to you. I didn't want to pull both sides, but this guy is fighting me. Hang on, let me try and tap him out from the other side. Grab that real quick. Finally rearranged. I actually got my tools. Oh, this shirt, by the way, is from a buddy of mine who runs a shop out of Indiana, Norseman Custom Cycles. I'll put a link in the description below, but he's been really helpful, just giving me some insight and some information on this thing. So go check him out if you have a chance. He knows a lot more than I do about actually doing this, and he's not winging things nearly as much as I am. Or if he is, he's hiding it better. Man, why are you in there so friggin' tightly? Fast forward. He wants to come out a specific side. That's gonna be super annoying. Okay, let me pull more of these pins and we'll see what we get. Okay, because these things are fighting me, I'm gonna try this thing that I keep seeing on YouTube to see if it actually works. And it's you just kind of, doing this seems to make it work, and I don't know if it actually doesn't seem to work. Then we're back. So that didn't work. So the actual issue is these pins that hold the pistons on are pretty stuck in there. Actually, they pivot and they move like they should, but they are not sliding out as easily as I would have hoped. So, in order to get them out, I don't think that my original plan of just kind of pulling them out of the engine is going to work. I think what I'm going to have to do instead, which is kind of frustrating, is I'm going to have to pull. I was going to have to do it anyway, but now I have to do it earlier than planned. I'm going to have to split this case in half. So, that's going to be fun. So I'm going to get to work on that, and I'll be back here in a second once I figure out the order for all of these screws to come out, or all of these bolts to come out, because I've got bolt, 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 bolt. Yeah, they're all over the place on the top and the bottom side. There's a kind of like squeeze it together. So yeah, I'm going to go dig around and figure out what order those come out in, and then go from there. Okay, now that we've got things a little bit better set up, I've got the GoPro up here, which... let's go ahead and get that going right now. All right, so I'm gonna switch most of this over to this camera here in just a second, just because I'm gonna be doing all of this stuff on the top and the bottom, and it's gonna be way easier to show on the GoPro. So off with you, on with you. All right, so I've looked at all these. These are all basically 10 mil heads. Sorry if I bumped the camera, it's basically right in front of my face. But yeah, these are all a bunch of 10 mils. So this side doesn't really seem to care as much about which order these bolts come out. The bottom side does have a diagram, which I'll put up once I get to that. But yeah, this one doesn't seem to care so much. So for right now, I'm just going to spin a bunch of these guys off. I'll crack them loose first and then go around and undo all of them. But like I said, 10 mil. I think what I'm probably going to end up doing here is I'll get all these basically to the point where they're coming out, and then screw them back in maybe a thread or two and start working on the underside, just so that I can get all of these out, but then leave them with this. So what I don't want is to lose track of where the various bolts go on this engine case, because I just just don't want to deal with it. It will be a pain in the butt if I lose track of where everything goes. Way easier if I just leave it all together. All right, these guys look a little bigger. No, not an 11, 12. All right, 12 looks to be the correct size for these guys. So there you go, 12s. So these two bolts back here, so this little guy and this little guy have corresponding ones underneath this. So these just go directly into the case. This one goes directly into the case, but this one and this one both go, and there's a bolt on each side. So I need to track down another wrench to hold the bottom side of that. And of course, this guy is being stupid. I have a sneaky suspicion that the bolt that is currently on the bottom, or on the bottom side of this, is not the one that came with it, because I'm finding that all across this engine, so it's a different size. So the other one was 12 and 12. This one is not. This one's going to be like 12 and, I don't know, probably, knowing this thing, a standard measurement instead of a metric measurement. The other concern there is that this bolt right here, has a space to go all the way through, but doesn't. This one's stopped in the other end. So I'm not sure if these are supposed to go all the way through or if they're supposed to be threaded. Once I get this bottom one right here out, I will check, because I'm not actually sure how that's supposed to work. So that's interesting too. All right, now I've got all these loosened up. So what I'm gonna do now is, this engine stand is maybe gonna cooperate with me and let me flip this engine over this way. Hopefully. We'll see. I need to jimmy some stuff to get it to work though, so give me a second. So I didn't show removing this, but this little guy came out of, okay, cooperate with me, that little hole right there. So this guy used to sit right here. I'm not gonna try and screw him back in all the way, but yeah, he used to sit there. I undid him and pulled him off because it was getting in the way, and this was resting on this when I was trying to flip the whole engine over, which is not what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna set this guy off to the side carefully. I think this is a sensor of some sort. I wanna say it's an oil pressure sensor, but I'm not positive, so don't quote me on that. I will probably Google it after the fact and find out and post it somewhere. Pick a spot, editor me, it'll go somewhere. Yeah, back to work. Okay, so this is probably not the approved solution, but for viewing purposes, this is what I'm gonna be doing. All right, so I have this little guy, stabilize, there we go. All right, so I've got this little guy turned over like so. So it's not fully upside down, but I didn't want it resting on any of the head bolts, which are on that side, so they are not currently. So now what I'm gonna do is oil pan, pull the oil pan, and then once, because I totally forgot that this was still on there. Once the oil pan, ooh, plug please, damn. This is gonna make a mess. I can tell already. But once I get the oil pan off, yeah, just gonna go from there and continue the work. So give me a sec. All right. So this is the oil drain plug. However, I don't know what, if anything, is gonna be in here now that I've maneuvered the engine all over the place. But the issue is, pretty confident that that's not supposed to be that bolt. It's just a nonsense bolt that the guy had on there. It's not even the right washer, it doesn't look like. So I'm gonna leave it in there for now, but once we get to replacing stuff, I'm probably gonna replace that with something else. Honestly, with how low this bike sits to the ground, what I might do is just get something where I can just crack it and it'll drain without having to do much if I decide to go that route, but we'll see. So, time-lapse stuff. There we go. Now we're gonna do a quick little reveal on this little guy. and hopefully he'll come off. Oh wow, he came off really easy. All right, cool. So, ooh, and there you go. There is what's in my oil, and that, not sure how well you can see that because I can't even see it, but that is what looks like some, I don't know, fabric or something. Let me turn this guy over. Oh yeah, so that's basically just a ton of sludge. So that makes me nervous because I don't know what that was, but it's I don't know, it almost looks like fabric something or other, but I'm not sure what. If it was like a, ugh. Well, is that a leaf? I don't know what the heck that is. This is gross though. This is actually way worse than I expected this to be, considering this engine was running until it wasn't. And now it's not really that surprising that it wasn't. So, I'm gonna go ahead and put this up and then keep working on this guy. It occurs to me, I didn't actually mention what this actually was. So this is your oil pump that sits at the bottom of that sump and pumps oil. So I believe the manual said you can just pull these little bolts and this thing should, in theory, pop right out. So I'm gonna give that a shot. And again, 10 mil because of course it is. That said, despite the fact that the filter looks kind of shitty, the actual everything else in here looks fairly clean. I'm not seeing a bunch of grime and residue stuck up in various pieces, so that's good in theory, I think. But we'll know more once we get it actually out of here. Because now that we're actually tearing everything apart, I mean, I might as well just clean everything all the way. Hopefully I can just remove this though as one solid chunk instead of having to break it down. Yep. All right. And there's your oil pump coming out. So, you can kind of see in there. So that gear connects with this gear down here. That little guy. And as that guy spins, which, where are you? Yeah. As this little guy spins, this little guy spins and actuates, or at least that's the idea. I can hear it doing stuff, so not sure if you can hear that. But yeah, there's your oil pump. Nice mechanical, old school, sounds like it's actually working. So I'll spray it down with some parts cleaner and that'll be that. But now we've got the bottom end off, or I'm sorry, we've got that part out of the way, so now we can actually start fidgeting here with these various bolts. So I am going to really quick pause this, find out what the actual order is, and I'll be right back. So using my handy dandy manual right here, basically the way that it says to torque these down is, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, and then 10. So I think what I'm going to do is exactly that. But that's just for the case bolts. These other ones, they don't actually say anything about it. So I'm going to undo all of these little guys first. So basically all these small ones that are, dang, just all over the place. I'm gonna undo all of those first, and once all of those are out, then those ones that I just pointed out, I'll put those, I'll pull those out in that order that I already mentioned, but actually I think I'm gonna do them backwards. So it'll basically be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then 1. So this will be the last bolt that I pull. But rather than make you wait for that, I'm just gonna do the magic trick. All right, and just like that, all these little guys are loose. So all the little small ones are loose. All these guys have been cracked so that they are not loose, but they have been spun off enough that now I don't think it actually matters what order I do them in. So I'm gonna speed through this really quick and try and get these things undone before that battery on that GoPro there dies. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spin these out all the way, and then what I have found very handy is making templates for all of your nuts and bolts. So after I get all these out, what I'm going to do is, or once I get them all loose, I'm going to slowly back them all out and put them into a little pattern that I will basically make on a piece of cardboard. So once I get all this stuff out and into the cardboard, I'll be back. Okay, so I know I said I was going to come back when I had the bottom end off or had things set up, but unfortunately then I noticed down in here, which this is the Kickstarter gear right in here, you can't see it, but it's down in there in the back, and then these are your primary drive chains. But so right down in here in this little area, I noticed there was a little chunk of something, and I thought it was just like some liquid or whatever, but then I reached in there and that is not the case. It is a piece of metal. So I don't know what that's attached to. I'm sure I'll find out once I get further into this engine, but this might be part of why my kicker gear has been so weird and wonky and making funny noises. So yeah, there was a giant chunk of metal just sitting in the bottom of this. So I'm gonna get back to cutting this thing, or rather breaking this thing down and getting it all out and all the bolts out and into their little pattern. But yeah, I just figured I'd touch base on that real quick and let you know what I found. So this is kind of what I mean. So right here I've got it labeled CB top side, right? And then I've got little holes for all this, and as you can kind of see, looks somewhat, despite my garbage drawing, somewhat like the engine. So what I do is I take those and make them go nice. Okay, so there you go. Now you have all your little bolts exactly where they need to be for that bottom side. So now I'm going to just flip this over and do the same thing to the other side, and I'll be back right after that's done, because that should mean we're ready to split this case. And there you go. Just like that, we've got all of our bolts are dangling out of the bottom of this little guy. So I've pulled all the ones out of the top. I pulled all the ones, I think, out of the bottom. I didn't see any that were just hanging around. This guy is only about that long. He doesn't actually go all the way through. He's holding in this piece, which is part of the shifter mechanism, I believe. So I can leave him alone. Also down here, because those bolts went all the way through, I put them in the top end, which is why they all say there's 3 holes here for it, but they say top end. And then I got my identifiers. There's my shifter little nubbin that's sticking out over here, and then I got my kicker nubbin, which is over here. Nubbin being a very technical term. So, got all these. I will once again be back once I've got this flipped over back in the engine stand, so then we can start trying to pry that top end off. So, be right back. Okay, so we're back to sort of where we were a while ago. It's been quick for you. It has not been quick for me. So, the engine case now all has its bolts out. They're over on the pile. So now what I'm going to try and do very, very carefully is split this case. So I'm pretty sure it's going to come apart pretty easy because I was hearing noises when I put it back on the lift or on the little engine mount or engine stand that make me think that this thing's going to come out pretty easy. So let's find out if I got all the bolts and they are actually loose. So let's see. Okay, so new find. The way that these cylinders were widened, bored out, whatever you want to call it, is going to give me some hassle. So basically, here, I'll just draw it real quick. Basically what's happening right now is normally you have the cylinder and the piston sits right there in the middle. The problem is when they bored this out, it looks like they didn't change something. So I've got little fins right here of metal that are part of the upper engine case. And the problem is those are narrower than the piston head is. So I still can't get the piston heads out even though the rest of the thing is ready to come off. So basically, I've just got to fiddle with this some more. So I'm going to just probably time-lapse this if I can and see what I can figure out with these guys. So, pause. Okay. So, rather than continuing to whack at this one, because this one is stuck like Chuck. Like, I don't know if you can see this piston, but it takes a ton of force just to get it to even turn on that pin in the center, which is not how that's supposed to be. So, I think, though, that I have gotten enough stuff out of the way that I might be able to shimmy this little guy down through the bottom as the only piston left. So I'm going to give that a shot here real quick and just see if I can get this top end off, and then we can maybe try and, I don't know, press that out or something. I got to figure something out. But yeah, let's try and get this this top off, this top of the case. There it goes. Sweet Jesus. Okay, so it was as I expected. Victory eventually, but that's off now. Although it's probably, not gonna lie, it's probably useless at this point. We'll see. But ooh, okay. Let me grab a little rag real quick. Let me show you what I thought I saw a little bit earlier, but now that I've got it off, I can for sure see. All right. So part one, This is that piston. So this side looks like this. You can probably see it a little bit. There you go, nice and shiny, as you'd expect. But then when you turn this side over, you can see down here some nasty, nasty gouges. And they go all the way through that coat, like they are in there. And you can kind of see a wear mark right here. I need to look at the cylinder again because I didn't remember seeing any wear marks in the cylinder. So I'm wondering if I just got lucky and maybe this was hitting somewhere else. I'll check here in a minute once I actually get the case apart and see if it's if it's hitting the case down here or if it was hitting something else. But yeah, that was a mess. And this piston's now toast because you can see right here. I don't think that came off while I was whacking at it, but maybe? I don't think so, though, because I'm also noticing some other issues. So there's the piston, and that's, oh, shoot, which number was that? That was the number 2 piston. Yeah, so that was the number 2. Put him down there, but then also, right here, so this is the little rod that was going through the center there. I don't know if you can see this, but this whole center bit, right where it was sitting on the con rod, is honestly, like, I can't tell if it's corroded or welded. This looks like heat in the middle there. So I'm wondering if it was just basically welded on, because looking at the, looking at this little guy, the actual connecting rod that it was attached to, that connecting rod has some buildup in there as well. I don't know if that's salvageable or if that's basically just Dunskies, but that one has some pretty significant buildup in there. I can feel it with my finger, even through the gloves. So, yeah. That explains why that was stuck in there so bad, is it basically like half welded itself to the actual piston, it looks like. I assume because of friction, but maybe not. I don't know. It's weird because it almost looks like this pin is too big to even go in here on one side. But it does go okay on the other side. Right up until it gets to that friction point, i.e. right there. And then, yeah, no go. So, I don't know what the deal is. I'll have to look, but for sure I'm going to need at least one new piston. Although looking at the rest of these, they might all need to go, which is why I had it on the board. So now, well, that connecting rod moves, although it's potentially useless. Let's check the... Well, let's actually get this thing split. Let's give it a shot. And there we go. So, that is the cases. Now split. Huzzah! That's minor victories, I guess. Go ahead and pull this timing chain out of there just to get it out of the way. There's the timing chain. So, now, let's go back to the GoPro here real quick. Now that I got this guy off of here. So, that sucked. That was a nightmare. I'll deal with the rest of this stuff in a little bit. But the case is now split, thankfully. So, looking at it though, let's see here. So that one moves kind of like you'd expect. That one moves. This one though, you can see it right here. That guy doesn't move at all. So that's fun. I'm not sure how bad that problem's gonna be, but my guess would be pretty bad. So yeah, we got this guy. Who contacts a little bit down there, but I think it's only because it's supposed to be, I guess it's got really tight clearances. It's only supposed to be down in certain areas at certain times, but man, that's just such a mess. This guy is locked solid. Completely solid. So that's awesome. But yeah, so that's where we're at. So right here, you got primary chains, you got your connecting rods, crankshaft is this big old boy. And yeah, so I still need to look. I mean, this tells me that there's probably a spun bearing or a number of other problems, so we'll have to take a look. But the rest of these, I can't tell if that's actual movement or not. Top to, like, up and down. Same thing there. I got a little bit of wiggle side to, yeah, that one's got quite a bit of side to side wiggle, but I don't know how important that is. Same with this one, a little bit of side to side wiggle. But that is kind of where we're at right now. I do need to figure out where that little chunk of metal that I found earlier came from, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but time to go looking. So that's where we're at right now. We've got the top off, we've got the bottom off, we know what all these are doing, minus this one. So two things. One, this is going to wait till next time. So we're going to, next time we come back, we're going to figure out what's going on with this connecting rod, why it did what it did, and why it is so stuck. So we'll get to that. Probably go over some transmission stuff just for funsies. I don't think that there's anything wrong with this transmission, but we'll take a look. And then last but not least, so that little chunk that I pulled out right here earlier today, here's what I think. This, I think, is part of the kicker mechanism. So I'm going to get in here, but that's going to wait until next time. So thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.